Good morning. My name is Hector Omi Martinez Rosado, Director of the Procurement Division for the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery and Mitigation Programs. In this proposal meeting, we are going to discuss the request for proposals number CDBG-DRMIT-RFP-2025-01 for the Historic Preservation Construction Management Services for the Home Repair, Reconstruction, or Relocation Program and its Earthquake Allocation, and the Single Family Housing Mitigation Program under the Community Development Block Grant for Disaster Recovery and Mitigation Program portfolios, among other federally funded initiatives. I would like now to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing personnel. Along with me is Pedro Cintron Vasquez, Procurement Manager, Sidrum Simonavicu, Technical Specialist, Karen Lee Ayala Baez, Technical Specialist, Vanessa Acobi Ross from the Housing Division, and Erika Gavan Morales from the Federal Compliance Division. Any questions submitted in this meeting will be answered in writing and published in an addendum. Any information provided in this meeting does not change the terms and conditions established in the request for proposal instructions. The meeting will be recorded and available on the CDBG-DR YouTube channel. All procurement processes shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT programs to guarantee full and open competition and fair treatment for all persons and entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available on the CDBG-DR website as seen on the screen, incorporated by reference and made an integral part of this request for proposal. Now, we are going to have a presentation from Vanessa Acobi Ross from the Housing Division for an explanation of the scope of work.
Thank you, Hector. Well, good morning, and thank you for participating in this pre-proposal conference meeting. The Puerto Rico Department of Housing is issuing this request for proposal to procure highly qualified and skilled architecture and engineering designers and contractors to provide historic preservation construction management services for the R3 program and the Single Family Housing Mitigation Program. The selected construction management firm will perform as a design-build single-source responsibility entity. The R3 program provides assistance to homes damaged by Hurricanes Irma and Maria, the 2019 earthquakes, and Tropical Storm Isaias, whereas the Single Family MIT program provides assistance to homes that are not in living conditions due to recent disaster or hazardous events that are under immediate threat from future events and are located in a high-risk area in Puerto Rico. Both programs provide single-family assistance through three main venues: repair, reconstruction, and relocation. As for the scope of work required for this RFP, the construction managers are responsible for the design of repairs and reconstruction awards, the evaluation of environmental documentation before completing the design documents, obtaining all relevant permits and approval for the project, performing the abatement of hazardous materials when required, install PV and water storage system, and complete the construction of the property according to applicable codes and regulations. The environmental review process will require historic preservation consultations, and this must be completed before construction work begins. All cases are subject to environmental review under the following regulations: National Environmental Policy Act, HUD's implementing regulations at 24 CFR Parts 50 and 58, and Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act and its implementing regulations at 36 CFR Part 800. For homes located in historic zones or districts listed in the National Park Service National Register of Historic Places or deemed to have potential historical value, the design and construction work must conform to federal and local cultural and preservation office requirements, secure necessary endorsements or approvals from historic preservation agencies, and follow the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. Construction projects involving historic properties are required a specialized and meticulous approach to ensure the preservation of their integrity and significance. All designs under a historic preservation construction management contract are custom. Once a task order is issued, the construction manager will be responsible for all aspects of the architectural and engineering design, including technical studies, surveys, research, data analysis, and home designs. The construction manager is also responsible for conducting a property assessment to validate and confirm the project intent and develop a scope of work. The construction managers under this RFP must exercise due diligence in assessing and mitigating potential adverse effects on historic characteristics while ensuring compliance with all regulatory requirements. The construction managers are also need to support the PRDOH formal consultations with the State Historic Preservation Office, also known as SHPO. The design shall comply with green building standards for repairs and HUD's guideline on the Community Planning and Development Green Building Retrofit Checklist. The design must also incorporate mold-resistant products when replacing surfaces, as well as using Energy Star and WaterSense labeled products or appliances. As for reconstruction awards, the design shall also comply with one of the green building standards listed or any of the HUD-approved equivalent standards. As for environmental tasks, PRDOH environmental consultants will perform an environmental review for each eligible property. Once the environmental review is completed by PRDOH, they will be provided to the construction managers to consider any environmental requirements during the design phase. Construction managers will also be responsible for securing and paying for all permits, work, testing, certifications required for any required abatement work. The construction managers will also be responsible for evaluating the environmental review record information, requirements, and implementing any means to mitigate negative environmental impacts for projects, including historical and archaeological adverse effects and any other environmental compliance. As for permitting, the construction managers will secure and pay all incidental permits, endorsements, and certifications required to execute the scope of work. Some of the typical permits and endorsements for the projects are the State Historic Preservation Office, Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña, Electric Power Authority endorsement, Aqueduct and Sewer Authority endorsement, CARS topographic endorsement, Coastal Zone Consistency endorsement, asbestos and lead abatement permits, and construction permits. As for construction tasks, demolition works may be required for repair award. However, it is required for all reconstruction works. It is important to note that if demolition work is required, lead and asbestos abatement must be performed and cleared before any demolition takes place. As for repair works, the construction managers will be responsible for performing all repair works based on the estimated cost of repairs included on the program unit price list. Repair works will be considered complete when all program approved scope of work line items as specified in the task order have been executed. As for reconstruction work, the construction managers will be responsible for providing replacement home construction based on program requirement, existing site conditions, approval from concerned agencies, and the approved design solution. Reconstruction costs will be based on the program's unit price list and will be considered complete when all program approved scope of work items specified in the task order have been executed. Photovoltaic and water storage system will be installed only when feasible and shall comply with the program's minimum requirements. As for warranties, all work shall be covered under the following minimum warranty periods: 10 years for roof waterproofing, 5 years for solar water heaters. For equipment and appliances, the warranty shall be of 1 year or as provided by the manufacturer's warranty, whichever is greater. 10 years for the solar photovoltaic system panels, 25 years of linear performance for the solar photovoltaic modules, 10 years for the battery bank and inverter, 5 years for the water storage system, and 1 year for all other work. As for staff requirements, the construction manager must demonstrate that they have capable personnel by including the name, education, years of experience, and resumes for a senior project manager, a lead design manager, and a lead construction manager. The construction managers must provide staff who meet the Secretary of Interior's standards and the guidelines for archaeology and historic preservation. The proposed staff shall have expertise in archaeology, structural stabilization, material conservation, historical landscape preservation, and other specialized disciplines to ensure compliance with preservation standards and best practices. As for the metrics, milestones, and performance, PRDOH will actively review the construction manager's responsiveness and performance in the R3 and SFM programs. Repeated failures or low performance will result in limited future assignment of projects, reduction in the geographical regions assigned, or a probation period without receiving additional R3 and SFM projects. Construction managers must submit all subcontractors to the PRDOH for final approval. Also, construction manager will be evaluated for the average design and permitting time, workmanship, work in progress, average build, and client satisfaction. As for liquidated damages, the construction managers are responsible for paying the PRDOH $100 for each calendar day that the completion of work or the homeowner moving date is delayed until deemed in compliance. Construction managers shall request inspection for work performed, which will be completed by PRDOH consultants or municipalities. If the inspection has failed, the construction manager shall pay the PRDOH a fine of $500, which shall cover the cost of the reinspection. The payments for the historical preservation construction management services are based on pay points. For repair works, there are 2 pay points. The first one is upon the submission of the permit for the case, and the second one once all repair is completed and accepted by the program. For reconstruction works, there are 5 pay points. Upon submission of the permit of the case, upon completion of the home's foundation, upon completion of the home structure, upon completion of the finishes, and lastly, upon final acceptance of the work. As previously mentioned, demolition, abatement, repair, and reconstruction works will be implemented by means of a pre-established line items of work included in the program unit price list. The program will use these line items to establish the cost for each household. The program unit price list is composed of the following cost forms: the program unit price list cost form, the photovoltaic and water storage system alternate cost form, and the demolition of existing structure cost form. PRDOH may perform a cost reasonableness analysis of the unit prices submitted by all proposers. Please submit in writing any questions you may have following the instruction in the RFP documentation. Please remember that this presentation does not modify any of the terms, conditions, and requirements set forth in the RFP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good morning to all. My name is Pedro Cintron, and I will explain where to acquire the documents regarding to the RFP and special dates regarding the RFP. First of all, regarding the RFP acquisition documents, these documents can be available for download in the CDBG-DR website as shown in the screen. Second of all, regarding the special dates of this RFP are the following. First of all, a public notice was issued and published on July 14th, 2025. The documents availability started on July 14th, 2025. The request for invitation to the pre-proposal virtual conference via email was on or before July 21st, 2025. The pre-proposal virtual conference, which is held today, submission of questions and requests for clarification starting August 4th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Responses to clarifications, responses to questions and requests for clarifications on August 11th, 2025, and the RFP due dates, which are electronic submission only, starting August 26th, 2025 at 9 a.m. up to August 28th, 2025 at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Pedro. Good morning. My name is Kereli Ayala Weiss, and I will be explaining how to submit inquiries and proposals for this RSP. Please submit all inquiries. Please submit all inquiries in attachment 2 of the RFP and send them to the email shown on the screen. Responses to all proposers' questions will be answered by addenda and will be posted on the CDBG-DR website. Verbal communications regarding the content of the RFP are prohibited during the submission and selection processes. Failure to adhere to these requirements may result in the rejection of the submitted proposal. All documents related to this acquisition process, including the addenda issued by the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, are and will be available for download on the CDBG-DR website. All proposers are responsible for monitoring the CDBG-DR website for any issue addenda in this RFP. For the proposal electronic submission, we would like to emphasize that proposals will only be accepted electronically. The Puerto Rico Department of Housing will neither require nor accept physical proposal submissions. If a proposal is submitted on paper and electronically, only the electronic submission will be considered for evaluation. After completing the registration process through the CDBG-DR website, the proposers will receive access to submit their proposals. Once the scheduled submission period begins, a link will enable access to the registration form. Please complete all required fields in the form. Proposals must be submitted within the closing date and time scheduled. Access to upload the proposals will begin 3 business days before the scheduled closing date and time. Proposals submitted after the prescribed deadline would not be allowed. I'll now hand things over to my colleague who will explain the evaluation criteria.
Thank you, Kereli. Good morning, everyone. My name is Judrūnė Simonavičiūtė, and next I will explain the evaluation criteria. The evaluation committee will evaluate the proposals based on the criteria outlined on the screen. The criteria are listed in order of importance. Technical proposals evaluation, critical. Qualifications and experience of a proposer to successfully perform the services required in this RFP, as evidenced by the successful implementation of relevant services of similar scope and complexity, preferably in large, complex public organizations like the state government and federal entities. Next, quality and relevance of the proposed approach to the services described in this RFP, including implementation schedule and understanding of the PRDOH goals and historic clearance requirements as established in Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, also known as NHPA. Important. Professional qualifications and specialized experience of a proposed key staff as evidenced by relevant experience to the role proposed. Company capacity as evidenced by the information provided in the cover letter, executive summary, organizational chart, among others. Evaluation will consider the proposer's stability, relevant experience, and internal capacity to support and manage the services required under this RFP. Capacity of the key staff, and the ability to commit adequate time to effectively perform the services in the role assigned within the required time frame. For pass and fail, financial stability of a proposer and his capacity to effectively perform the services. Capacity of the entity to effectively provide the services required in this RFP. Designer entity's compliance with the Act 173-1988 as amended and or Act 319-1948 as amended. For preference, level, quality, and relevancy of participation by Section 3 business concern and minority, women, and veteran business enterprise, also known as MWBBE. Price proposals evaluation. Price proposal will be evaluated according to reasonableness of overall price, allocation of effort, and overall value offered. SAM registration. Proposers and first-tier subcontractors must be registered in the System of Award Management, also known as SAM, at the time of the proposal submission or initiate the registration process right after the proposal submission. For more information, please visit the SAM website. There is no fee to create, renew, or update your registration. Awards only will be issued to entities that are cleared and not ineligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, or hard-imposed limited denial of participation. Now we will leave you with Erica Caban-Morales from the Federal Compliance Division, who will explain the federal compliance requirements. Thank you.
Greetings. We thank the Procurement Division for the opportunity to present on compliance and labor standards requirements. This presentation is prepared in English. However, if it is required in Spanish, please submit the request following the procurement protocols. I am here today representing the federal compliance team from the Puerto Rico Department of Housing. Today, our agenda includes a discussion on the overview of compliance roles and responsibilities. We also review the tools available on our website. Finally, we will cover documenting efforts, reporting requirements, and address frequently asked questions. The procurement package contains language that offers a preference to those proponents who are certified as Section 3 businesses or certified as minority or women-led businesses. Don't forget to consult the references and templates made available, which will be discussed in this presentation. Proponents wishing to obtain a preference must submit their self-certifications and sufficient evidence on how they qualify as a Section 3 business. The Puerto Rico Department of Housing offers a template on its website. Proponents wishing to obtain MWE preference must submit a copy of their certification and demonstrate their status. Their certificates submitted must show the dates and indicate that they are currently active. The work to be performed under the contracts resulting from this RFP may be subject to the requirements of Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, as amended 12 U.S.C. Section 3 helps foster local economic development, neighborhood economic improvement, and individual self-sufficiency. It is PRDOH's policy to require its subrecipient contractors, subcontractors, and contractors of subrecipients to provide training and equal employment opportunities to low and very low income persons, particularly those who are recipients of government assistance for housing or residents of the community in which the federal assistance is spent to the greatest extent feasible. The Department of Housing makes available a Section 3 policy guide on their website, both in English and in Spanish. Contractors must read and implement activities as applicable and necessary. They are also responsible for their subcontractors, ensuring that benchmarks are met. For Section 3 projects, 24 CFR 75 has established the following benchmarks. 25% of the total labor hours per project should be work hours by Section 3 workers, and 5% of the total labor hours should be work hours by targeted Section 3 workers. The Section 3 plan, contractor or subrecipient, this document template allows contractors or subrecipients to outline their strategies for meeting Section 3 hiring, training, and contracting goals. Section 3 contractor plan template is available online on the PRDOH website in English and in Spanish. This document assists in identifying new hiring and subcontracting needs, helps plan outreach efforts, and supporting coordinators in managing daily activities. Finally, it helps you define compliance procedures, and it helps you understand your reporting requirements. Section 3 self-certification forms. These documents templates help individuals identify if they meet the requirements to be considered a Section 3 worker or targeted worker. Contractors and service recipient must make efforts to complete self-certification forms as part of their contracting and purchasing procedures, fulfilling their Section 3 business identification commitment. The business that are identified as Section 3 will be part of the database for dissemination of contracting and purchasing opportunities. You can access the self-certification forms through the link presented on the slide. Procurement package language MWBE. The work to be performed under the contract resulting from this RFP shall be subject to the regulations set forth in the CFR 200.321. This regulation requires the non-federal entity to take necessary steps to ensure that when possible, all recipients, contractors, subcontractors, and or developers funded with the CDBG-DR or CDBG-MIT funds hire or provide economic opportunities to small and minority firms or women-owned businesses, enterprises, and labor surplus area firms. Consistent with executive orders number 11625, 12138, and 12432, non-federal entities shall make every feasible effort to ensure that small businesses, minority-owned businesses, enterprises, and WBEs, and also labor surplus areas businesses participate in contracting. There are various regulations that call for the inclusion of minorities and women business enterprises in the 2 CFR 200.321, as well as executive orders 11625, 12138, and 12432. Establish the participation of MWB firms, which seek to ensure that when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance and directed to minority business enterprises and women business enterprises. The Department of Housing has established an MWB policy guide. This is available on our website in both English and Spanish. You can access these documents, again, through our website. The MWB policy will identify that there are goals which will apply to professional services, purchasing supplies, and construction contracting. There is a total minimum participation goal, which are 10% for women-owned businesses and 10% for minority-owned businesses. Contractors are expected to perform good faith efforts for contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing opportunities of $10,000 or more during the life of the contract. Let's look at the MWB utilization plan. This tool assists in compiling data for subcontracting purposes. It helps you identify what needs you may have. It helps hold discussions on creating supplier and contractor listings and provide awareness of meeting the goal for the contract and tracking. You can use the website and download the plan template. For the descriptions of MWBE companies, for MBE is defined as a 51% or more of the business is owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more U.S. citizens of ethnic minority and or gender and or military classification and or veteran. For a WBE as a business concern that is at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women, must be a U.S. citizen or legal resident alien whose business formation and principal place of business is in the United States or its territories, and who's managed and daily operated or controlled by women. When we talk about certified minority or women-owned businesses, we are referring to those who are filed applications with federal entities such as SBA and others that you see here on the slide. Businesses who are certified can provide proof of completing an application process to be officially recognized as a certified minority or women business. If you are registered as an MWBE, you should provide your valid certificate or other evidence in response to this RFP. As part of its obligation to the Department of Housing, The contractor or subrecipient must carry out compliance efforts during the term of the agreement or contract. Will be reported by submitting the quarterly report and the template to document efforts. It is the duty of every organization to keep the preservation of documents updated according to the policy on document management, administration, and accessibility created in your organization. The objective of this document is to facilitate the compilation of all the arrangements and procedures intended and linked to Section 3 and NWB as applicable. These efforts are carried out during each quarter by the subrecipients and contractors. The Department of Housing has established a quarterly report available on the website for subrecipient and contractors to download and complete and finally submit. This form is a method for reporting quarterly compliance, activity, and efforts on Section 3 NWB and FHEO regulations. All subrecipient and contractors are expected to have a system for collecting updated information for reporting on this form. The PRDOH's quarterly report captures Section 3 data for 24 CFR 135 data, 24 CFR 75 data, efforts performed, and for MWB data, contracting for MBEs, contracting for WBEs, efforts performed. It also collects FHEO data, including limited English proficiency, compliance with EEOC, workforce, race, and gender information. PRDOH requires quarterly reports from all contractors to be submitted on April 5th, July 5th, October 5th, and January 5th. Let's briefly discuss FHEO. Your RFP package will also contain a model contract which outlines fair housing and equal opportunity areas of compliance. Contractors are responsible for ensuring compliance with federal civil rights and fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and so forth, ensuring that all necessary efforts are being made. The Fair Housing Act and Sections 109 and 504 prohibit discrimination against the following protective classes of people: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The Fair Housing Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There are many executive orders, laws, and statutes that govern the non-discrimination of protected classes to ensure equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. Equal opportunity is afforded to protect classes through a number of these federal laws and executive orders. PRDOH has published policy documents addressing FHEO as well as language access plans. These policies must be implemented by contractors and subrecipients. They're both publicly available online in both English and Spanish on our website. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Department of Housing must ensure that all programs affirmatively further access to fair housing and that programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. Regional accommodations are adjustments to a program policy, practice, or service that afford individuals with disabilities equal access to the program's benefits. Section 504 requires federally funded programs to provide requests, RAs, RMs, at the cost of the program and to the extent that are reasonable, and address a verified disability-related need. Contractors that have 15 employees or more are required to have a 504 coordinator. The CDBG and CDBG-DR and mitigation reasonable accommodation policy provides requirements and guidance for evaluating these requests. PRDOH supports programs in the handling of and evaluations of these requests. Limited English proficiency, LEP, refers to a person limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico's high Spanish-speaking population, all entities and contractors using the CDBG-DR and CDBG mitigation funds must seek to ensure both that a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English or Spanish will not place them at a disadvantage in the participation of programs. For occupational safety and health, also known as OSH, Construction projects funded by the CDBG-DR and mitigation must adhere to OSHA and PROSHA regulations to ensure worker safety in accordance with the 29 CFR 1926. The PRDOH recipients and project contractors are responsible for ensuring that their subcontractors implement OSHA, PROSHA, and CDBG-DR and mitigation OSH policy requirements. Contractors awarded these contracts are accountable for executing the necessary safety measures, taking corrective actions, and maintaining compliance with OSHA reporting standards. The Puerto Rico Department of Housing provides an OSH policy guide on its website in both English and Spanish. Contractors are required to review and implement the relevant activities as necessary. They're also responsible for ensuring that their subcontractors meet established benchmarks. First and foremost, subrecipients and contractors must integrate the PRDOH CDBG-DR mitigation OSH policy in their operations. This means that every relevant construction project needs to align with these guidelines. Contractors and subrecipients must ensure that these guidelines are not only understood, but are actively applied at every stage of the construction process. The policy outlines specific requirements, especially those tied to OSHA standards like 29 CFR 1926. By doing this, they help to create a culture of safety on site, reducing the risk of accidents and ensuring that projects run smoothly and safely. Ensuring compliance is another critical responsibility. It's not enough to implement the policy. Subrecipients and contractors must also regularly verify that all OSHA and PRDOH requirements are being met. This means conducting routine inspections and audits to identify any areas where safety standards might be slipping. When non-compliance is detected, it's crucial to act swiftly, implementing corrective measures to bring operations back into line. The goal is to prevent safety breaches before they happen, protecting both the workers on site and the integrity of the project. These two responsibilities lay the foundation for a safety and compliant work environment, ensuring that all construction activities meet the required safety standards. Managing subcontractors is another key responsibility. Subrecipients and contractors must ensure that subcontractors are not only informed of the OSH policy, but also actively following it. This involves monitoring subcontracting activities, providing guidance as necessary, and ensuring that all safety benchmarks are met across the board. This involves a clear communication of safety expectations, regular monitoring of subcontractors' activities, and ensuring that subcontractors are held at the same safety standard as the primary contractor. Documenting and reporting accurate and thorough documentation is essential for demonstrating compliance with the PRDOH OSH policy. Subrecipients and contractors are responsible for keeping detailed records of all safety-related activities, inspections, and incidents. This includes maintaining logs of daily safety checks, incident reports, training sessions, and any corrective actions taken. Proper documentation not only helps in meeting regulatory requirements, but also serves as a valuable tool for identifying trends and areas for improvement. Additionally, timely reporting is critical. Any significant incidents or non-compliance issues must be reported. Smartsheets provide a centralized and accessible platform for tracking safety metrics, reporting incidents, and documenting safety practices in real time. This ensures that all safety-related data is consistently recorded, easily accessible for review, and can be swiftly communicated to relevant stakeholders. Proper use of a Smartsheet helps maintain transparency, supports timely corrective actions, and facilitates ongoing monitoring to uphold safety standards across all construction projects. Training and education are critical components of the PRDOH CDBG-DR mitigation OSH policy. Subrecipients and contractors must ensure that all workers, including subcontractors, receive appropriate safety training relevant to their roles and responsibilities on the project. This includes initial safety orientations, as well as ongoing training sessions to keep workers updated on the latest safety protocols, procedures, and regulations. Training should cover specific OSHA requirements, hazards, identification, proper use of personal protective equipment, emergency procedures, and any other relevant safety practices like preparing of job sites during hurricane season. It's important to ensure that training is accessible to all workers. This may require providing materials in both English and Spanish, depending on the workforce language's need. The monthly OSH Roundtable is a key component of our safety strategy. It serves as a vital forum where we can openly discuss any safety concerns, review recent incidents, and share best practices. This regular interaction helps ensure that all contractors and construction managers are on the same page regarding our OSH policy and procedures. By coordinating our efforts, we not only have safety compliance, but also create a safer workspace environment for everyone involved, leading to better project outcomes overall. Now, for the Davis-Bacon Act, this law and requirement generally applies to federally funded or assisted programs that are valued at more than $2,000, contracts for the following types of work on public buildings or public works include construction, alteration and repair, and even painting and decorating. Requires payments of prevailing wages as determined by the Department of Labor. It provides a fair opportunity to compete in building programs funded by the federal government. It prevents contractors from bidding below on areas prevailing wages. Most construction projects funded with the CDBG-DR and mitigation funds must comply with DEBRA requirements to ensure that laborers and mechanics are paid prevailing wages. This includes overtime for the work performed on these federal funded projects. Contractors awarded contracts with these federal funds are responsible for understanding and complying with DEBRA requirements. The Department of Housing and its recipient are responsible for oversight. This includes reviewing payroll and other records related to the work performed using these federal funds for construction projects and ensure compliance with the requirements. The Department of Housing has published the Davis-Bacon Policy Guide, and it is made available in English and in Spanish. The Davis-Bacon and related acts aware that the use of CDBG-DR mitigation funds is monitored by the DOL and HUD. Maximum cooperation from all our recipient contractors is required. In this regard, compliance with the Davis-Bacon Act and related acts, also known as DEBRA, involves, but it is not limited to, cooperating to ensure that PRDOH complies with the Davis-Bacon and Labor Standards Agency Contractor Guide and Contractor Addendum by performing the actions outlined by the federal agency. Cooperating to ensure PRDOH complies with the U.S. Department of Housing Handbook 1344.1, Review 3, by diligently responding to the department requirements to adhere to this guide. In this presentation, we also discuss the applicability of these federal level standards for Housing and Community Development Act 29 CFR 5, Davis-Bacon Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, Contract Work Hours and Safety Standard Act, and Copeland Anti-Kickback Act. The Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, known as CWHSSA, states that workers should not only workers should not work more than 40 hours a week unless they are being compensated over time, and that projects must comply with certain safety standards. The Copeland Anti-Kickback Act requires that there's a payment at wages at least once a week, and it only speaks to permissible payroll deduction being allowed. The Fair Labor Standards Act sets the federal minimum wages and additional overtime requirements. The following slide discusses the metaphases that are found within the construction projects. These are activities that happen during procurement, during the pre-bid meeting, during a pre-construction meeting, during a contract signing, on-site interviews, collecting and reviewing certified payrolls, notifying prime contractors, and when the project finishes, producing the project closeout letter, and finally, the ongoing reporting and record keeping. Incorporate the wage determination labor standards provision and HUD Form 4010 into your bid documents. Hold a pre-bid meeting to provide technical assistance to DEBRA and prior to awarding the contract, incorporate prevailing and federal wage determination HUD Form 4010 and contract labor law language. Hold a pre-construction meeting to provide technical assistance to your contractors on DEBRA. Once construction begins, conduct job site visits and employee interviews using HUD Form 11. Carefully review weekly certified payroll reports and supporting documentations for the duration of the project. Issue due diligence notifications to the prime contractor describing the deficiencies to be remedied. Identify and correct all deficiencies before billing PRDOH for CDBG-DR and mitigation reimbursement. Issue a letter of authorization for DEBRA to the prime contractor prior to project closure. Retain records for 6 years in accordance with the housing records retention policy. Complete biannually reporting. For PRDOH and its recipients are responsible for HUD's compliance with the federal prevailing wage requirements applicable to HUD-funded CDBG-DR and mitigation programs. Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 requires the payment of local prevailing wage rates to all workers on CDBG-DR and mitigation construction projects over $2,000. This requirements apply regardless of whether the contract was acquired through a sealed bid, small purchase, or non-competitive proposals procurement processes. Contractors must include the HUD 4010 form with all subcontracting tiers to ensure compliance with DEBRA. The HUD 4010 form includes various clauses and important languages for prime contractors and any subcontractors working on a federally funded project. Contractors must include this form with all subcontracting tiers to ensure compliance with Davis-Bacon and related acts. Contractor penalties and consequences for non-compliance. The Department of Housing discusses penalties and consequences are part of its policy. These such actions may include having contract payments withheld in sufficient amounts to satisfy unpaid wages and liquidated damages that result from violations. You could also be subject to debarment from future contracts for up to 3 years and other potential consequences. We wish to clarify that compliance with federal legislation does not exempt you from complying with applicable states. Legislation regarding prevailing wages include but not limited to Executive Order 2022-014 or Law 47-2021, better known as the Minimum Wage Act. That's it for today's presentation. Please remember to direct all questions through the procurement processes. Thank you.
Thank you for participating in this proposal meeting. If you have any questions, please send them to the email seen on the screen. Additionally, submit your proposals through the website as shown on the screen. We wish you a great day. Thank you.